You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
Right now at 7, area firefighters battle a fire and heat exhaustion in Berry County, Missouri.
Also, the courthouse in Carthage, Missouri reopens for business after extensive water damage shut it down.
And we have an alert day today for the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms this evening. Look at your forecast to get you out the door coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Elise Noe.
And I'm Chris Warner, just after 7 a.m. on this 4th of July, Thursday morning.
Independence Day.
Yes. So I hope all of our friends in England are enjoying their work day today. Yes, you know, we can't say, we can't make fun because what are we doing right now? What are the people in our control room doing right now?
Actually, England has a really big election going on today, which I find kind of funny.
That is interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
On the 4th of July.
Well, I mean, I don't think they see Treason Day the same way we do.
They don't light off fireworks in celebration of us.
Something tells me that they probably do not celebrate our independence as hard as we do. So you got to make sure you're staying safe. We've got Dustin Luno from Joplin Fire Department today. He's going to talk about some fireworks safety. And you may recall earlier this year when it got to be, Arctic tundra level temperatures, there was some water damage in Carthage.
Yes. And offices at the Jasper County Courthouse are back in operation after the pipe burst earlier this year, causing the flooding and destruction of many of the offices.
KOAM's Anthony Saviello has more.
I'm tickled to death that everybody's back here and the staff has expressed the same thing.
The county collector, as well as many other offices at the Jasper County Courthouse, have been reopened to the public. County Collector Steve McIntosh received a not-so-pleasant phone call on January 17th earlier this year.
When I got here, there's no power. People were all over the place. The sheriff, my chief deputy, and her husband are in here. They beat me in here. 2 inches of water on the floor, ceiling tile falling down, water gushing down on us. It's like, wow.
Over the past 6 months, he's watched as a renovation that took 2 years to complete was torn out.
2.5-year remodel that we had just finished, not even a week before.
However, the issues didn't stop there.
It got worse when they had to abate the lead-based paint on the ceiling. That took all the ceiling grid down, took all the drywall out of here.
All staff were moved over to the collector's office in Joplin, and taxpayers either had to solely conduct their business online or make the commute to Joplin.
Hey, we had a few complaints, but if you look at the number of people we serve and deal with on a regular basis, daily basis, it was a very small number because most people understood.
Now the time has come for taxpayers to make their way back to the courthouse, where operations will continue as usual. Reporting in Carthage, Anthony Saviello, KOAM News.
McIntosh went on to say he is grateful for the public's patience, and you can find this whole story and previous coverage of the courthouse flood on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com.
And I remember this was a really rough situation for them. They just completed the renovations at the courthouse. It looked absolutely incredible.
Yes.
And then they had that situation happen. So just double the renovations makes it look even more incredible.
I feel like a lot of buildings had burst pipes over the winter. It was pretty freezing and
we had some pretty cold temperatures. Thankfully, winter's still a ways away. So instead, we're dealing with extreme heat. But like I've said before, at least with the heat, you don't have to scrape it off your car. You're not shoveling it off the sidewalk.
That's true.
It won't burst your pipes generally, so there's some pros and cons here and there to both sides. Let's start with a look outside from our camera on top of the Cornell Complex downtown Joplin. We got clouds out there. Those will eventually start to break up as we head into the afternoon, going partly to mostly cloudy. And if you look at the flags downtown, wind is shifted back out of the south. It was out of the north thanks to those dying thunderstorms, shifting out of the south now, and that's going to bring in the warm, moist air for our severe threat tonight. Cloudy skies, but a little bit of daylight sneaking in here from 7th and Range Line, and cloudy skies off to the south as well from MoDOT camera 32nd and Range Line. We had this thunderstorm complex roll through the area in within a 3-hour window. That's how long this loop is. Look how fast it just raced right on out of here, and that's going to allow us to heat up and destabilize a bit, so we do do have the chance for an isolated tornado, mainly on the Missouri side of things. And we've got a low risk for some large hail across the area. But as I've mentioned, the biggest concern is with this elevated wind risk. We're talking winds 60, 70 miles an hour. And that's really the season we're in. Once we get out of traditional severe weather season, we get into this season where it's more damaging winds and large hail events, and the tornado threat wanes a little bit. But remember, with severe thunderstorms, the tornado threat is really never zero. But as we go in the summer months, it's a bit lower out there. Heat advisories in our southern counties through 9 o'clock this evening. Heat index values down here, upwards of 110. Heat index values outside of that could still be 100 to 105 degrees. So we put the future track down to about 4 o'clock. Isolated showers initially, and then we see thunderstorms blossoming along this boundary out there. And those storms will ramp up rather quickly, with that severe threat ramping up right along with them. Unfortunately, actually, some new data here, maybe suggesting they might wrap up a little faster for some of us, but still, nonetheless, it does look to be bringing us some strong to severe thunderstorms at the most inopportune time this evening. We're going to break down details on those storms in more detail here in just a moment. Behind the front, and where we had some rain, cooler upper 60s, low 70s. Ahead of that, we're back into the upper 70s and low 80s. That boundary is going to retreat back north a little bit, and that'll bring in that warm, moist air out there. Highs today, upper 90s, partly cloudy, and those thunderstorm chances increasing as we head into the evening. As I mentioned, we'll break down the full details on those thunderstorms and what happens after this cold front rolls through here in just a few more minutes. Elise?
All right, see you soon. Well, a controlled burn in Jasper County, Missouri. It gets out of control yesterday afternoon just north of Denaweg. Authorities say it spread quickly, covering about 25 acres, but did not threaten any buildings. Firefighters tell us despite some recent rain, much of the area is still relatively dry. Area fire departments asked the public to reach out to them before performing a controlled burn. And local firefighters recover after battling a fire in this high heat index. When crews responded to a house fire near Golden City, Missouri late Tuesday afternoon, the house was already engulfed with visible flames from all sides. One firefighter was taken to the hospital from heat exhaustion and smoke inhalation. A second was treated on the scene. The house was a total loss. And authorities conclude an investigation into the discovery of a body at the scene of a house fire in Anderson, Missouri. The fire happened early Monday on Park Street, and authorities found a woman's body inside the home. Now, an investigation and autopsy indicate the woman, 52-year-old Gina McCormick, set fire to the building, then fatally shot herself. Authorities say they do not suspect foul play. Well, coming up next, Dustin Luno from the Joplin Fire Department joins us in the studio to talk about fireworks safety. And later, a special project coming in 2026 that honors the stories of America's first veterans. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 7:10 now on this Thursday morning. Live look from our camera downtown Joplin on the Cornell Complex, and you can see it is cloudy. The sun trying to break through, and some of these clouds will start to break up like they're doing here from our camera at 7th and Range Line. A little more sunshine on the east side of town. And as we head to 32nd and Range Line, looking back to the south, we got the clouds, but again, they'll start to clear out. Same down in Neosho, some cloudy skies out there as we get the day underway. Skywatch Storm Tracker is now pretty much void of any activity in our immediate area. This thunderstorm complex raced through the early morning hours here and has already left us behind after bringing some much needed rain, but no severe weather. That will not necessarily be the case this evening. We do have a risk for an isolated tornado mainly into Missouri this evening, but we have that low risk for hail across the area. The greatest concern we have is with this elevated risk for wind damage. So we're talking winds 60, 70 miles an hour tonight. So what does that look like on the future track? Well, it looks like some of you may have some ruined 4th of July plans as we head into the evening hours out there. By 5, this boundary is going to start triggering showers and thunderstorms across the area. And this is when our window for severe weather is going to be from, let's say 5 to 11 p.m. is our window for severe weather across the area. By 9, right as a lot of fireworks shows and celebrations are getting ready to kick off, we've got widespread thunderstorms and potentially widespread severe weather across the area as well. So if you are going to be out at a community event, make sure you're aware of where a shelter is or that you have a plan in place if you need to get into your vehicle or take cover from these storms. If you're planning something yourself, just keep your eye to the Skywatch weather app, and if something starts to get close, be prepared to move indoors. And as I'm sure Dustin Luna will tell you, do not move your fireworks indoors, just move yourself indoors. But seriously though, these thunderstorms though, there's a lot of inconsistency over the last few days as to the timing, as to how long it will take for this boundary to push these storms out of here. A couple of days ago, they were staying until midnight. Yesterday, they were out of here by 10. Today, the new data suggests they're still going to be here maybe as late as midnight out there. So do be prepared for these thunderstorms to last through most of the evening. We need the rain. They just picked the worst possible time to come through. Heat advisories in our southern counties through 9 this evening. Heat index values down to the south could reach 110. Outside of that zone, still could see heat index values of 100 to 105. Outside in Joplin, it gets mostly cloudy right now, 74. The wind is variable at 4 miles an hour. It let up after some gusts out there from those dying thunderstorms that passed just north of the city. So here's that boundary. Brought those showers, brought the storms. Where that boundary, if you're behind it and you got the rain, it is a very nice start to the day. Upper 60s, low 70s. If you are ahead of that boundary, it is not such a pleasant start to the day. You're already into the upper 70s and low 80s out there, and you've got those heat index values ahead of the boundary pushing low to mid 80s already this morning. That boundary, though, is going to retreat back to the north and west, and that's what's going to allow for more moisture, more warm air to build back in to help set the stage for our severe thunderstorm threat later this evening. Well, mostly cloudy skies initially through the morning. They'll start to break up a bit near 90 by 11 o'clock. And then most of us into the mid to upper 90s today for our highs. So unpleasant to say the least. Now, that boundary may not retreat fully northwest across the area. So some of you, Yates Center is a great example, may only make the low 90s. It's still hot, but you may not be as hot as your neighbors out there. And then after 5 is when those thunderstorm chances increase. And we're watching that potential for severe weather. But I want you to see also the benefits of this front. Even though it's coming right in the 4th of July, it's going to do one thing for us, albeit briefly. Look at this, still into the mid 80s by 10 o'clock. Once we get behind that boundary, our lows tonight, mid upper 60s out there, which means we have a cooler Friday, mid 80s. It's going to be decent. Doesn't last long. Heats back up into the weekend. Storms on Sunday. They will cool us a little briefly at the start of the week. Then temperatures go back to the mid 90s with more pop-up storms by the end of next week. Let's check your forecast. We're back with more right after this.
Well, today is the 4th of July and millions of Americans will be shooting off fireworks. Dustin Luna from the Joplin Fire Department joins us in the studio to talk about how you and your family can stay safe this holiday while still having some fun. Good morning to you, Dustin. Thank you so much. Good. Happy Independence Day to you.
Absolutely. It's a great day.
Yes. And so as we celebrate our nation today, can you talk to me just about the proper steps and precautions that people can take when lighting and enjoying some fireworks?
Yes. Fireworks is a great pastime. Our family will have a big, get together tonight. But, we want you to do that, have fun, enjoy it, and not end up in the ER, right?
Right.
So a couple things is just, fireworks always have adult supervision. Children enjoy it, but always have adult supervision. I was looking at some statistics earlier, and one of the #1 injuries from fireworks is actually sparklers. How many people have sparklers for their kids, right?
Yes, young kids
Absolutely,
too.
yeah, those burn at about 1,500 degrees.
Wow.
That could lead to thermal injuries and so forth. Other than that, just being very responsible as far as where you light them off. Make sure you have a nice open area that's controlled. Be sure you don't store unspent fireworks with spent fireworks, or keep them close to one another.
Right.
Those embers can last for quite some time in the spent fireworks, actually several hours. So after your evening is over and you've had fun and you're enjoying everything and you decide, hey, let's clean everything up and we're going to go to bed, it's very important to not bring that stuff in your house.
Okay, yes.
Matter of fact, I would suggest not even putting it in a trash can. I would leave it out in the middle of the yard somewhere nice, open, away from everything else.
Would you even suggest a bucket of water? I know so many people do that as well, just to separate that, make sure it's doused in water before even, getting into the trash or anything else like that.
That's a great idea. We take a garden hose and just, have the pile of spent stuff and just soak it down really good. But just have it all by itself out in the middle where in case something happens, it's just going to burn itself out.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the last few years we've been to a couple of garage fires early morning of the 5th of July because they've taken spent fireworks, put them in the trash can, rolled it in the garage. Things happen, it heats, it starts fire, and now we have a large loss. All because we just leave it out in the yard.
Not even being super careless, even something
because being very responsible.
Being very responsible, yes,
right.
And incidents happen like that as well. Besides sparklers, what other common incidents do you see during this time of year?
Honestly, the grass fire is typical, but right now, fortunately, we have a very high humidity that keeps to mitigate that down.
Yes.
Especially if we have rain this evening.
Right.
Obviously, be very weather aware this evening as you're out, especially if you're going to be out and away from the house or specific shelter. So be very weather aware. Hopefully, that mitigates our risk for grass fires and so forth. Other than that, just be sure that you're using the fireworks as recommended by manufacturer. Don't hold on to stuff that can be explosive, things of that such.
Absolutely. And really quickly, you are taking job applicants.
Yes,
People
we are.
are interested. Where can they go to do that and apply?
They can go to our city website at joplinmo.org. There's a tab on how to apply. You can select a firefighter trainee, and there's all your information as well as contact information from my office if you have any questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being with us this morning. Happy 4th to you. We'll be back with more of the KOAM Morning News right after this.
Well, the 4th of July, we're hearing some of the stories of America's first veterans. Volunteers have been working with the National Archives to transcribe military pension files from the Revolutionary War.
It's a special project leading up to the 250th anniversary of American independence in 2026. Michael Yoshida gives us a look at the documents and stories from those who fought for America's freedom.
These markings here on the left show the states that the soldiers served from, both Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Telling the stories of America's first veterans.
So this is an original Revolutionary War pension file.
The National Archives on a mission to preserve details and memories of Revolutionary War soldiers.
The grueling stories of a battle, of their life after the war, of their family, the famous generals they might have seen. That's always fun when they talk about George Washington marching by, or that they marched with George Washington.
This special project started last year with the hope of finishing in 2026 for the 250th anniversary of America's independence. Volunteers from across the country and world going page by page, line by line.
Every word that's transcribed becomes searchable in the National Archives catalog. And when it's searchable, it means that it's accessible to the entire world.
Volunteers do their work online by looking at digital copies. But on this day, the National Archives gave us an up-close look at original documents from the 1800s and the unique stories they tell.
Deborah Gannett, who served as a soldier in the Revolution under the alias of Robert Shirtliff.
John Deben with the National Archives walking us through the papers and the tough task volunteers face, from words being spelled differently, often by the way they sounded, to the challenges of reading the cursive and handwriting, though John and his years of experience make it look pretty easy.
Was in Bunker Hill battle with him, and that he served in the Revolutionary War a considerable time.
Beyond stories, files also have lists of possessions.
A broken kettle worth 75 cents, a skillet worth 25 cents.
Unlike today, soldiers had to show why they were in need of financial assistance and a pension.
This document also has a very nice example of original government red tape.
John also giving us a quick history lesson.
Before staplers and paper clips, they often took official documents and bound them together with red ribbon, to keep them, to put them together. So that's where the term government red tape originally came from.
Pieces of America's history the National Archives hopes will be saved and shared for years to come. In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Really incredible. And sometimes I think we often overlook those veterans. I mean, because they were the first ones to do it. It's just really incredible to learn more about them and to see what this project is all about.
I mean, they're the reason that we are the nation we are today, because they fought for that.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, some area international students celebrate and learn about the 4th of July.
And we've got an alert day today for the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms later this evening. We'll have one more look at that forecast to get you out the door. Coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:28. I'm Elise Noe. The public library in Chanute, Kansas yesterday gave kids a chance to fly drones. The drones, a part of the library's summer program, were to encourage kids to visit their local library. Organizers say they want to make sure kids know libraries offer more than just books and that they can also have fun in an educational setting.
We are doing a drone today because we are engaging with a more community, especially with children's. And then we also offer for the variety of the opportunity to learning and during the summertime. And then we also have we need to let them know that we have more than books and to having fun.
The Chanute Public Library holds a number of summer programs, and you can find more on the library's Facebook page. Well, some international students at Pitt State got a head start on Independence Day celebrations. The intensive English program held its own party yesterday with about 60 Japanese and Taiwanese students. They got to share food, experiences, and learn about what the holiday means to the nation.
To expect with what kinds of foods they're going to see, how it's celebrated, and to also learn about what it's all about. Because coming from different countries, they don't fully know what that history is. So we get to be able to kind of teach them and prepare them for what's going on.
The intensive English class will also be hosting a canoe and kayaking event with lawn games and a cookout at the University Lake on July 6th. Now here's Chris.
Yeah, we've got that alert date today for the possibility of strong, severe thunderstorms. Ahead of that, though, it's going to be very hot once again across the area. Our camera 7th and range line, clouds are still trying to break up a bit, getting some sunlight out there, but still mostly cloudy. Same view from MoDOT camera 32nd and range line looking back to the south. Skywatch Storm Tracker has cleared out. That complex raced out of here very quickly this morning. Thankfully, it was severe to our west, but it weakened by the time it got here and just brought some much needed rainfall. But again, our severe chances ramp up as we head into the evening hours. We do have that risk for an isolated tornado, mainly on the Missouri side. We also have a low risk for large hail across the area, but the greater concern is the elevated risk for wind out there. We're looking at wind gusts maybe 60, 70 miles an hour with some of these storms later this evening. We also have heat advisories in place for our southern counties again through 9 this evening. Heat index values down here upwards of 110 degrees. Outside of that, still could see some heat index values of 100 to 105. So we're going to be partly to mostly cloudy as we go through the day. Clouds increasing this evening, and that's when we'll start to see these showers and thunderstorms fire up. So by 8, you can see we've got these scattered storms initially, and they'll overspread a little more of the area as we go through the late evening hours. So unfortunately, right about the time we're supposed to be setting off fireworks is right about the time these thunderstorms are supposed to be really ramping up. So if you're attending a community event, make sure you have a plan if you need to take cover or take shelter. If you're doing your own event at home, of course, make sure you're safe, but also make sure you're watching the weather. Keep the Skywatch weather app handy in case you need to move your plans indoors as we head into the evening hours. We've got this boundary. It's going to retreat back to the north a little bit out there, so that's going to bring the warm air back up. It may stop right about here, so some of us, like Gates Center, Iola, Chanute, may only make the low 90s. Still hot, but you won't be as hot as your neighbors. And take a look down to the south, already in the low 80s out there. Highs for most of us today, mid-upper 90s across the area. Partly cloudy skies through the day. Thunderstorm chances ramping up tonight. We're going to break down the details on these storms and the power of this cold front here in just a few more minutes. Elise?
All right, thanks, Chris. Well, the 4th of July festivities around the 4 states rolled on last night in Carl Junction, Missouri. The Carl Junction Area Chamber of Commerce hosted the Firecracker on Wheels decorating party. Kids of all ages could come out with everything from bikes to trikes to scooters and anything else with wheels and decorate them in patriotic style.
But what we've done is usually we have lots of kids that'll show up and they bring their bikes and decorate them. So instead of them having to do that early in the morning, we offer the building for them to come so that they can decorate their bikes here this evening. Our church leaders, they're out there decorating the church float, so we're getting all that done tonight too.
So I'd say put that. Kids will ride their patriotic wheels during Carl Junction's 4th of July parade. A church in Joplin is also getting in on the 4th of July action. Celebration Church yesterday hosted a celebration of freedom. The family-friendly event featured food, bounce houses, games, worship, and capped off with an outdoor movie viewing. Officials say it's a way to bring the community together.
It makes me feel great. You know, this year, it's election year. It can be divisive for people. This is a time, no matter what background, just to come together and just, celebrate our freedom and the goodness of where we live.
Very important holiday, one of my favorites. It's where I'm able to go out and just show how much I love my country, how much I appreciate the people I know and everyone, all the veterans. Just a way for me to show my gratitude to my country.
The event also had live music, kickball, and cornhole. And now to look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. We'll see how one man in Michigan who is partially paralyzed is preparing for the U.S. Adaptive Open. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back. Well, a man in Michigan was left partially paralyzed after a car accident in 2006. But as Fox's Camila Mary reports, he's preparing for the U.S. Adaptive Open.
It's mostly you against yourself, to be honest.
Jimmy Mosheri, a rising star in the world of adaptive golf.
All 3 tournaments I've done, I've been top 10, and I've been competing with them really well. So it's been a great time. How you guys doing?
We met up with Mosheri Tuesday afternoon at Cherry Creek Golf Course in Shelby Township as he prepares for the U.S. Adaptive Open, where he will compete against the top adaptive golfers in the country.
I've seen so many amazing golfers that lost their leg or lost their arm or born with some, or cerebral palsy. You name it. I've seen some really, really good golfers. It's pretty amazing. Even though I'm one of the athletes, I'm looking at these guys like, wow, they are really, really good.
Mosheri is paralyzed from the waist down, a result of a car accident 18 years ago. A gifted athlete before the crash, the Rochester Hills native is determined not to let his disability get in the way of living a full life.
Just to get out there and try different things. It's amazing to see all the different avenues and things that you can do even after a traumatic injury of any sort.
As he continues to advance in his sport, Mosheri is looking for partnerships and sponsors.
Unfortunately, golf is pretty expensive. This unit's very expensive. The golf clubs are very expensive. Unfortunately, it's not cheap, but I definitely love doing it, so I'm looking for some help with that stuff.
In Shelby Township, Camila Mary, Fox 2 News.
Certainly lots of resilience there, and best of luck to him as he prepares to compete. Well, coming up, new data suggests Instagram may be the best social media platform to get in touch with your airline. And thunderstorm chances return. We'll have what to expect with Chris Warner in the Skywatch Weather Center. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 7:40 now on this Thursday morning. It's 4th of July, Independence Day, and we are starting with this live look from our camera downtown Joplin on the Cornell Complex. Still some mostly cloudy skies out there, but starting to see a little more sunshine, and you can see that same view from our camera at 7th and Range Line as well. A little bit of blue sky mixing in and a little bit of sunlight starting to get through, and seeing a little more sunlight from MoDOT camera, 32nd and Range Line in Joplin. Still on the mostly cloudy side down in Neosho right now, but again, that will begin to clear out for us. So, Skywatch Storm Tracker is void of activity in our area as this main complex has just gone ahead and rolled on out of here. Thankfully, no severe weather with it, just some much needed rain, but that's going to change as we head into the evening hours. We do have a risk for an isolated tornado, mainly on the Missouri side as we head into the evening hours. A low risk for large hail across the area, but the bigger concern, as we've been talking about this morning, is this elevated wind risk where we could see damaging wind gusts 60, 70 miles an hour as we head into the evening hours. Unfortunately, all of this looking to line up right with our fireworks celebration. So between now and then, we're going to be partly to mostly cloudy, hot and dry across the area. And then this boundary by about 5 o'clock starts setting off these showers and thunderstorms out there, and they're going to intensify rather quickly. We're going to start to see severe weather initially, far southern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma by 7. And then as we go through the rest of the evening, we see a few more numerous showers and thunderstorms out there, all of them with that capability of becoming severe with that damaging wind threat across the area. By 10, as you can see, a lot of us still dealing with the rain out there and thunderstorms either close to where you are or happening where you are. It should be out of here by midnight, but It's one of those things that's going to be right during the times of celebration. So as we've been mentioning all morning, if you're going to a community event, make sure you've got an alternative plan. You've got a safe place to go. If you get caught in one of these storms, make sure you're keeping an eye to the sky and keeping an eye to the Skywatch weather app. If you've got plans at home, same thing. Keep an eye on the Skywatch weather app. Keep it here to KOAM and just make sure you are ready to move indoors should the need arise as we head into the evening hours. Heat advisories in our southern counties continue until 9 this evening. Heat index values down south reaching upwards of about 110 degrees. Elsewhere, heat index values could be about 100 to 105. In Joplin right now, again, it is mostly cloudy, 74. The wind is light and variable at 4. Around the area at Boundary, right here, it's going to begin to lift back to the north a bit. It may not make it all the way up north, so some locations, you're still going to be hot, but not nearly as hot as your neighbors, maybe into the low 90s, while the rest of us south of this boundary are going to make it a little warmer than that. Already warm south of that boundary into the low 80s out there, with heat index values for some into the upper 80s as we get the day started. But for a lot of us behind that boundary, again, relatively refreshing. Mostly cloudy skies to start, and then variable clouds through the day, near 90 by 11 o'clock. Highs for most of us right around the mid to upper 90s with those variable clouds throughout the day. And we get into the evening, the thunderstorm chances increase, and this cold front is a good one. The relief from the heat is brief, but take a look. By 10, before we get through that boundary, still 84. Overnight lows tonight back into the mid to upper 60s, and that will also lead to a cooler day for us on our Friday, mid 80s. It doesn't last long, as I mentioned. Heat's back up into the weekend. Storm Sunday will cool us down briefly Monday and Tuesday, and we'll go back into the mid-90s toward the end of next week with some additional pop-up storm chances. That's checking your forecast. Now here's Elise with Consumer Watch.
All right, thanks, Chris. Well, private U.S. companies appear to be pulling back a little on hiring. Yesterday, the payroll company ADP reported that the private sector added 150,000 jobs in June. While it's a gain, it's slightly lower than May, which saw an increase of 157,000 jobs. The June numbers are also lower than the 163,000 jobs economists were expecting, according to data firm FactSet. In addition, ADP says jobs added in June were not spread evenly across industries. The company reported that the leisure and hospitality sector added 63,000 jobs in June, representing 42% of the overall gains. Google Translate's app gets a major update to help speak your language. The company announced its largest addition of languages with the help of its language model powered by artificial intelligence. Google Translate's latest update features 110 new languages, from frequently requested Cantonese to African tonal language known as Afar. The company says the added languages represent more than 614 million speakers. Having flight issues. New data suggests Instagram may be the best social media platform to get in touch with your airline. The social media customer engagement platform Amplify conducted a deep dive on airline response rates across several social media platforms. Amplify's data revealed 27% of customers that took their travel concerns to Instagram received answers, with more than half of the comments carrying a positive sentiment. The data finds the second best social media platform where travelers are more likely to get their questions answered is X, formerly Twitter, at 24%. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back. Well, even on July 4th, the entertainment world doesn't rest.
Here's David Daniel with our holiday Hollywood Minute.
Hello, Aya. Welcome home.
So we stick up a bunch of cameras. We call them eyes.
I'm not crazy about having them everywhere.
Honestly, you hardly even notice.
A family takes in a digital assistant that starts to take over in Afraid. As the smart home device learns about the family, it begins to anticipate their desires and make sure nothing interferes with what she thinks they need. John Cho and Catherine Waterston star when Afraid opens in theaters August 30th.
Where is Beetlejuice?
Where's Beetlejuice? Have you checked Italy? The sequel to Beetlejuice is heading to Venice. Beetlejuice, dang, now I've said it 3 times, is set to hold its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival on August 28th. Tim Burton's long-awaited follow-up to his 1988 original arrives in U.S. theaters on September 6th.
The juice is loose. I'm going to make you so happy.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
Well, some good movies coming out in theaters, it looks like.
Afraid looks really good.
Yeah.
We were talking, it reminds us, we saw Disney's Smart House.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this, that wasn't as terrifying as this one seems to be, but it looks pretty good.
Inspired.
And Michael Keaton never ages.
No, he doesn't.
I swear
he never
does
disappoints.
Not. No, he doesn't disappoint ever either. I loved all of his TLC references in The Other Guys.
I like him and Mr. Mom.
It was a good I haven't seen that one in a minute. That's a good one, too. Lots of great movies. If you're going to end up being stuck indoors with our storms tonight, you might be able to check out some 4th of July movies, some classic throwbacks. We just named a few, and I'm sure you've got some favorites of your own. Let's take a look at our storm chances for tonight. So here's what we're looking at. We do have a risk for possibly an isolated tornado on the Missouri side. We have a low-end hail risk across the entire region, and then our bigger concern is with that elevated wind risk out there, because we're looking at damaging winds 60, 70 miles an hour possible with these storms. So let's take a look down the roads. As we go through today, these clouds will break up a bit. We'll have variable cloudiness throughout the day. It's going to be a hot one. By 5, the boundary that's out there is going to start setting off these thunderstorms out across the area by this evening. By 7, southern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma, and they're expected to intensify and become severe rather quickly. And then they're going to begin to overspread the rest of the region as we go later into the evening. So if you do, again, I know I've said it 100 times, but really take note. If you're planning to go to a community 4th of July event, make sure you have a plan if you need to take shelter, or just see if it's been canceled or postponed. If you're having one of your own at home, just make sure you are keeping an eye on the Skywatch weather app in case you need to move it indoors. These thunderstorms will continue through the late evening hours, and again, severe weather is going to persist with them through the late evening hours as well, and they should be exiting by 11 o'clock midnight tonight, so unfortunately fairly late out there. So do keep that in mind with that severe threat. We also have heat advisories in our southern counties through 9 o'clock this evening. Heat index values down here could reach 110 degrees again today. Outside of that, heat index values 100 to 105 possible. Clouds slowly breaking up in Joplin. 74. Winds are variable at 4. And temperatures around the region, if you're behind the boundary or got some rain, you're in the low 70s. Ahead of that boundary, you're in the upper 70s and low 80s with those heat index values out there ahead of the boundary in the low to mid and even upper 80s. As we get our morning underway, again, we'll have the variable clouds and we'll be about 90 degrees by 11 o'clock this morning. We'll have one more look at your forecast and news you need to know right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities conclude an investigation into the discovery of a body at the scene of a house fire in Anderson, Missouri. The fire happened early Monday on Park Street. Authorities found a woman's body inside the home. Now, an investigation and autopsy indicate the woman, 52-year-old Gina McCormick, set fire to the building, then fatally shot herself. Authorities say they do not suspect foul play. Taxpayers can now resume conducting business with the Jasper County Collector's Office in Carthage. The office is one that was affected by a burst pipe earlier this year. Flooding damage was so severe that the office had to be stripped down. However, issues were made worse when lead-based paint and asbestos was discovered. And staff and taxpayers all were sent to the collector's office in Joplin to conduct their business. The Joplin Public Library in Chanute, Kansas yesterday gave kids a chance to fly some drones. The drones, a part of the library's summer program, were to encourage kids to visit their local library. Organizers say they want to make sure kids know libraries offer more than just books, and they can also have fun in an educational setting.
All right, alert day today for severe weather later this evening. Ahead of that, though, variable clouds and hot. Most of us mid-upper 90s across the area. And as we head into the evening after 5, so let's say from 5 to 11 is our best window for strong to severe thunderstorms, with damaging winds being the primary concern. But this cold front pretty potent with temperatures. Storms ongoing at 10, 84. Once we get clear and into the overnight, we fall back into the mid-60s for our lows, leaving us a little cooler for our Friday. Heat returns returns this weekend. More storms Sunday and back to the mid-90s by the end of next week with more pop-up storms. But again, just want to keep a close eye on the weather as for this evening, especially a number of 4th of July events and plans going on out there.
Absolutely. A Colorado family finds a large bear nestled under their deck. The Colorado Parks and Wildlife Department responded to the call and got to work on relocating the roughly 400-pound bear.
The team was able to successfully sedate the bear, but say removing it was a bigger challenge. The bear was eventually taken to a more remote location, so somewhere other than somebody's deck. And I'm sure if they were setting off fireworks tonight, and he was there,
he would not be happy.
They would not be happy at all. They would have been very aware they had a bear if they did not know ahead of that. So good that they were able to get him out.
Absolutely.
Well, again, we're going to continue to keep an eye on the threat for severe weather through the evening hours. Make sure you're playing it safe out there. Happy 4th of July, everyone. We'll be back with more at noon.
And have a great rest of your 4th.